Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. There's just one topic that everyone is talking right now. It is the talks between the Russians and Americans and how Ukrainians will react to this deal. And today we're going to dissect it and talk about what exactly does it mean and how do we expect this to end. Not good for Russia, I can guarantee you that. So let's begin, and I'm sorry if I'm going to be coughing a little bit. I'm still recovering, so bear with me here, please. And I want to start by setting the ground up where we are in this war. And I want to start by reading this article, which says, the Kremlin is close to crushing Pokrovsk, a vital Ukrainian town. Even as Ukraine raids Russia, it is losing another key battle. Raids Russia? Wait, what? Oh, right. Because the Kremlin is close to crushing Pokrovsk, a vital Ukrainian town, was an article written on 22nd of August of 2024, which is more than a whole year ago. I think this perfectly encapsulates step one that we need to fundamentally understand if we're going to be discussing this topic, which is the headlines are lying to you. Media is desperate for clicks. They really want you to be afraid to see the inevitability. But the truth of the matter is that Ukrainians are actually doing not that bad on the front line. I mean, the fighting is still tough, and there's a lot of questions that Ukraine need to solve to resolve systemic issues within the military. But overall, almost a year and a half ago, we were still talking about Pokrovsk's imminent fall. And even right now, to this very day, the city is not taken by Russians, and we're not even talking the fact that Russians are almost non-present in its twin city, Mirnograd, which is also important to take if Russia wants to kind of use this area for any further advances. Point number two, between bad deal or no deal for Zelensky, we are being conditioned that this is inevitable, and as you can see here, this is where the articles are manipulating. See my point number one. But the reality, again, is not as painted right over here. Let's take a second here and do a little bit of physical activity, sort of a conditioning exercise here. And it's a very simple one. We're going to clap our hands for the rhythm, and we're going to repeat a very simple chant that will get us into the right mindset, into the right understanding of the situation. So repeat after me. Ukraine will not sign a bad deal. Okay, let's try it. 1, 2, 3. Ukraine will not sign a bad deal. Oh, what is that? I can already hear people typing on their keyboards and phones that the US is going to stop supplying intelligence. US is going to stop supplying weapons to Ukraine. I want to say, slow there down, cowboy, and repeat after me. Ukraine will not accept a bad deal, because that is a fundamental fact that we always need to understand. We're going to come back to why this fact exists. But that is fundamental, that every time you want to say, but this, Ukraine will not accept a bad deal. And now we can finally jump into the meat and potatoes of this whole thing. So after the talks with Ukrainians in Florida, Witkoff and Kushner jumped into plane to go meet with the representatives in Moscow and Mr. Midget dictator himself, Putin. And the interesting part for me here is not the meeting overall, but more of a Witkoff. You know, it became a little bit of a meme picture that was taken during Witkoff's and US delegation's meeting with Ukrainians. Yeah, he doesn't look very happy, if you ask me. But then we get a picture with Russians. So Witkoff with Russians, Witkoff with Ukrainians. Russians, Ukrainians. Hi, Putin. Oh, Ukrainians. Putin. Yeah, I think this, again, tells me more about who Witkoff is and what he represents than anything else. Now, we talked extensively about what this deal is. You can rewatch the video. It's a pretty long one where we went very much into details of what is this deal, where it comes from, where it originated, and it originated in Kremlin. But the key points of the deal that was proposed both to Trump and what is pushed by Witkoff, Kushner, and J.D. Vance as the spearheads here is basically, come on, Russia, let's just make a deal. We will make money and not war. Let's just get you off of the wanted list. Let's just give you the territory that Ukraine will give you up, and we're gonna start making shitloads of money, and everyone will be rich. And it's a fantastic new world that awaits us. And obviously, there's like layers and layers of corruptions and issue here with this deal that it's too much to go into. I'm pretty sure any of the other American analysts will take this apart much better. But I think the key part here for us all to understand is that this is going to be a monumental failure. Because to be honest, when the information surfaced that the core of this deal is the economic policy, that it's about making money, I was shocked, because I thought that the idea about making money has already died at the start of the Trump's administration when Putin rejected it for the first time. I thought that's it, that it's not gonna fly anymore. Putin already got Trump humiliated in Alaska, so that's it, that the economic cooperation is now off the table. But it turns out, no. It's been on the table all this time, and this just made me roll my eyes. Listen, I don't want to be insulting to my American friends, but this is truly the most stereotypical thing that one can imagine. It's like Trump's administration just cannot imagine how it is to be Putin, how it is to be Russians. Trump administration shows that they are absolutely incapable at understanding Putin, understanding this whole situation. Because, listen, let's be very, very clear. Economic coercion of Putin is not going to work. You know why? Because it didn't work beforehand. US has tried economic coercion, not just with Russia. It was tried to be done in Afghanistan. It was tried to be done in other parts where US campaigns failed. This has been done before, and for some reason it failed. And this could be traced to some of the people within US administration not understanding the counterparties. And the same way, they are not understanding Russians and Putin. Putin had all of the economic leverage. Putin is so goddamn rich that he is not understanding a concept of money, period. For Putin, if someone approaches him and says, hey, let's just be rich together, he is just kind of smiling, because I think like Trump is billionaire, right? Like, or people within Trump administration are millionaires, maybe billionaires, whatever. And they don't understand that Putin is already beyond that. He transcended. He's like next level. For him, all of that money doesn't matter. He had all of the money in the world. Europe was feeding off of his palm. It was basically dependent on Russia. He had everything. Yet, he attacked Ukraine in 2014, and after supposed sanctions and everything, he still attacked in 2022, despite the fact that he had every single leeway. People were standing in line just to lick his balls, yet he still went for it. And I want to be very clear, this misunderstanding of Putin is not original. The same is happening in Europe, except on other matters. Half of Europe still doesn't understand Russia and thinks that they can be negotiated with, and there is still like a quarter of Europe that thinks that if Ukraine will give some land to Russia, it will just go away and aggressor will be pacified, even with the parallels that we all know about. The problem is that Putin doesn't need money. He is, I guess, again, he transcended this. Now we're talking about Dmitriev and other people. Yeah, they care about money. But they're representing just a specific block of people within Putin's government that are still tied to the concept of money. They want to see maybe Russia kind of get out of this situation and potentially rebound back on the world stage. And they really are trying to do. Dmitriev, Ushakov, they are the representatives. They are sort of trying to work around Putin. They want to satisfy Putin's goal and essentially sell to him the victory in Ukraine in a different sauce. But that is not how Putin sees everything. Every single time Putin went out to the public, he said one thing and one thing only, that we're going to crush Ukraine, Ukraine is going to be going back to essentially the Stone Age, and they will be our vassal, or they will not exist at all. That is basically the Putin's message all along. And it has changed 0%. Not a single step was given any type of way. And only thing that happened is there are some different parties around Putin, such as this Dmitriev Economic Cooperation Bloc. They found a way to talk with United States, and they're selling this to Putin as, hey, we're weakening them this way, and potentially this is for us to give way for you then to conquer full of Ukraine. Putin didn't change his plans. He doesn't want Donbass. He doesn't want any land from Ukraine. He wants Ukraine to not exist. He will never sign a deal, even the 28-point peace plan that was completely atrocious, which we again talked about on this channel. That deal would never be signed by Putin. They're able to walk around him, like saying, oh, we're just discussing, this is just a starting point. But they would never be able to persuade Putin to sign it, because Putin wants all of Ukraine. He wants Europe to be licking his boots. That is his desire and dream. And he is not motivated by money 1 inch. And the most hilarious for me is that some people within Trump's administration are trying to present an argument that mutual cooperation between United States and Russia will elevate the level of living of people within Russia and will help make Russia more prosperous. That is hilarious. Putin does not want richer Russians. He wants Russians to be poor. He wants Russians to live in dirt. He wants Russians to essentially live like dogs and only dream, salivating when Putin is saying, go die for me, and then your relatives will get a white Lada car that costs $10,000. And for Russians, it is just such an obscene amount of money that they're ready to do it right away, there and then. This is his dream scenario. Russia is set up the way it is as a purposeful state that diminishes normal people. This is a whole point of the country, and Putin is enjoying it, and he's enjoying those benefits right now, very much so. Putin's worldview is simple. Everyone that followed his speeches in Russians know that all too well. It is that democracies are weak, Western world is fragmented and easily manipulated, and if you just wait long enough, there's going to be people that will bring you everything that you want on a silver platter. And this is exactly what is happening. This is exactly what he sees happening. The fact that there is right now Witkoff and Kushner and everyone is coming to him as sort of this great king, as sitting on his throne in Russia. They're coming with gifts to this king. For him, it paints a very simple image that he is correct. That if he's just continue waiting and playing, he's not going to receive a quarter of Ukraine that is being proposed to him right now, I believe, in this deal. That he will actually receive everything. Everything that he imagined will happen is happening for him. There are leaders right now standing out in line. Orban, now also we see guys from the United States are basically licking his boot. President of United States staying here on the red carpet in Alaska, clapping like a good old dog, waiting for Putin to come and grace him with his presence. That is what Putin sees and believes. Everything else is just mealworms crawling around, trying to consider some aspects that he's just too far above us to understand. And that is why when I hear that some kind of economic benefits will bring this conflict to an end, if I can use this rhetoric, is just hilarious to me. But more importantly, it is Americans also completely misunderstanding Ukrainians. As much as it is being propagated by Russian propaganda and Russian shills in US and European countries, Zelensky is not a dictator. He is also not a Tsar. He is not a warlord. He does not have absolute power. The power in Ukraine is with the people. The recent anti-corruption scandal is the prime example. There was an effort by some of the people in power trying to suppress people in the country, and they rose up and they made sure that they don't do that. And now the agency that the people preserved in the summer protests is now hitting back at a lot of these corrupt individuals in the government. And I think this is good because this reminds again who is in charge in Ukraine. So when Trump's administration is stating that Zelensky just needs to surrender the territories to Russia, that he just needs to end the war, they absolutely not understand Ukraine. We in the Western world got very comfortable with democracies. We got understanding that power with the people suppressed down to the level of, well, they're just not going to vote for us, worst case scenario. That is not the same in Ukraine. Ukraine is still a very early democracy. And early democracies, in our sense, was happening when the people could hang the people in power, politicians in power, by the balls, literally. If Zelensky would even think of signing off some of the Ukrainian territories, I'm not sure he would be alive, literally. Because, again, power in Ukraine is with the people. It is the people that decide what is going to be happening in Ukraine. There is idea that supposedly if Zelensky just orders his troops to withdraw, that his troops will just withdraw from the front line. But this is not the case. This has already happened. This is called the Second Battle of Donetsk Airport on Wikipedia, or people also know it, the Ukrainian hold of the Donetsk Airport. There was no military need to hold the Donetsk airport. This was already signed off. Donetsk airport was supposed to be going away to the Russians. Ukrainians didn't leave. Ukrainian soldiers for over 3 months, almost 4 months, were still going into Donetsk airport, and conditions there were nothing even close of what Ukraine is having now. The dominance of Russian there was total. And I mean total. It was a one-way trip. Yet Ukrainians did it anyway. They would not surrender the Ukrainian territory. They made it hell for Russians to take the Donetsk airport. Russians were able to take it eventually when there was not a single piece of building left standing. It was all rubble. But Ukrainians held it until the very end, and they were not giving it away. Ukraine right now is not nearly in the same position as it was during the Donetsk airport, where there was no help coming for Ukraine, where there was no absolute future at all for Ukrainians, where Ukrainians were absolutely left alone with the Russians. Europeans were happy because they signed Minsk agreements, and therefore they've been done. That's fine. So everyone was very happy that the conflict finally ended and it would not happen ever again. Well, look where we are right now. Ukrainians learned. They know. And right now, as much as we want to talk about the fact that supposedly US can pool their support for Ukraine, the fact of the matter is Ukraine is doing an absolute majority of the work. More than that, Europeans that do not show that they will withdraw even 1 inch, because Europeans understand that if Ukraine falls, it's them that are going to be fighting Russia. Because if Putin wins in Ukraine, there's only one way forward, and that's towards Europe, because dictators do not stop until they are stopped. And not understanding that Ukraine as a country belongs to Ukrainians, not Zelensky, and the war is being fought not for the corrupt officials, not for Zelensky, not for some allies or Europeans or being in NATO, but for Ukraine. That fact not sinking in with the US administration is another critical flaw that leads them to some kind of a weird assumptions that Ukraine is just going to give something up and then finally we're going to enter the age of prosperity. especially when they try to pretend that they can put in some restrictions on Ukrainian military, like supposedly some piece of paper signed about security guarantees is going to convince even one person in Ukraine that it's going to be fulfilled in the future. Every single Ukrainian, every single fucking one, knows that the only guarantee between safety and future or their children is not a piece of paper signed with the allies from the West that cannot even figure out what they want. It is the armed forces of Ukraine, period. So to sum up this silly plan, it's going to fail and burn. Obviously, Russians will present it in a light that it's European fault, that it's Ukrainian fault, that America did so great, but like these pesky Ukrainians, because it's political, it's propaganda, this is what they're good at. Like Russians are very good at it, and I will not stop repeating this. We're not good enough at fighting Russian propaganda, unfortunately. But the fact of the matter is, Putin was never going to sign anything like this. The only way that there is some kind of way forward for agreement, if I can say so, is that it will just give Russia some time and will allow them to then recapture Ukraine, maybe a little bit later after there's a bit of a breather. But then again, so far, Putin doesn't even see the point of doing so, because from the front line, Gerasimov is reporting him bullshit that they're capturing everything. And from the political aspects, well, I mean, President of United States is sending his special envoys and they're just licking his boots. I mean, whatever else you can ask for. And much more important news are actually going completely under the radar of Western media. It is so annoying that it's not being reported, because those are the key issues, because the war will continue. And it's important part to understand what needs to be done for Ukraine to get into the position that it can force the end of the war. There are a couple of things. The importance of removal of current corrupt politicians that have been now alleged in corruption. Yermak has not been charged with corruption, but everyone knows he's shady. And again, I've put a whole post about it on my community tab. And basically, the removal of Yermak, a lot of people saying that it's crisis for Zelensky. I don't see it this way, mostly because imagine if it would happen to your country. Like, imagine there's politicians in your country. I'm pretty sure you know the names of the politicians in your country that everyone literally knows are like dirty. It's just like we do not connect with the names like Yermak or anyone else, because those are like, somewhere far away. But you imagine like a politician that you know is dirty, and suddenly anti-corruption agency goes after him and he tries to flee the country. You're like, yeah, finally we're doing something right. So I don't see this being a problem for Zelensky at all. We've seen some of the ratings actually released recently, where there is a super noticeable shift towards more optimism in the future of the state, and it is growing as Zelensky is announcing more and more reforms. So Ukrainians are seeing what is happening right now in power with anti-corruption agency coming against the top politicians as good, and I can easily understand why. So it's not a crisis, it's like the opposite of the crisis. And more importantly is what Zelensky is stating additionally on the internal front. He's stating that there needs to be a change into the defense plan. He says that the current defense plan and the change of hostilities has demonstrated that it exactly should become the updated priorities. It was agreed that Denis Shmyhal, the Ukrainian defense minister, will prepare the detailed proposal for changes and submit them to the cabinet of ministers for approval. Basically, Zelensky announced a military reform within Ukraine. We already stated that there's some movements towards military reform, but this is an announcement of a deeper military reform, something that has been asked for intensely. So fundamentally, Ukraine will not sign a bad deal. The headlines are also lying to you. Ukraine is not falling over on the front line. Russians are having a very tough time. And more importantly, politically, Ukraine is actually doing some important steps internally that will potentially allow them to restructure all of the resources that are now available to it and move away from being on a back foot to actually make use of all of their resources to put Russia in its place. Trust in Ukraine, support Ukrainian armed forces, participate in our mega fundraiser. We're doing fantastically, over 52,500 Guys, it is glorious. Thank you so much. I've reached out to the guys from BayFa. They're going to be making the drones. They said that they're aiming for the first batch to be made by the end of December. So I'm going to reach out to them and ask to send us some materials so we can get back to it. It's a great way to support the Ukrainian armed forces. I love you. Slava Ukraini, and I will see you next time.